Hello. That's your little pooch.
Oh, yes.
As we start, the little pooch starts speaking as well, like making herself or himself very well.
Yeah, don't forget I'm here too.
Oh, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the beautiful world you are. I hope you've had a fantastic week. Happy Friday! It's Friday and it's Joanne Breeze Day. And I love having you on the show, Joanne. I mean, I got to tell you, you've had such an incredible story. And yeah, Lisa, dear, I'm sure your dogs are going crazy. My cat was just in here meowing at me, scratching my couch, my chair, because I dared to not give her a treat when I made my tea.
Hi. I think we lost Shanti. Hello, everyone. Sorry about my dog, but then she likes to be vocal. She likes to be a part of everything. I'll let you know that we've taken in a little Joey, what we call a Pinky, today. She has no hair at all. Her eyes are still glued shut and her ears are still pinned back. And a bit later on, I'll be able to feed her and you'll be able to have a little look at her feeding. And tonight we're going to carry on with from last week where we were talking about boundaries and the court case that we went through when my daughter was only 6 weeks old. But we got Shanti back. Yay!
Yeah, I got to tell you, I've had such interesting times. I mean, for the last couple of nights in the middle of the night, my internet connection just dies. So I have a problem and I've just brought it back, but I also think that it's going to be, it's intermittent. So I have got my data back up, but it doesn't always work that well, especially not when we're doing live shows like this because there's just not enough bandwidth. Then, of course, yesterday my computer, the cable decided to stop charging just before Caleb's show. And so it was touch and go as to whether I was actually able to do the show from my laptop because it just couldn't do it. My laptop was dead. And then like literally 15 minutes before it started charging. I mean, I don't know what's going on. And then and now it's kind of playing silly buggers again. And of course, now there will be moments where my camera just decides to. So if that happens again, just carry on, please, Joanne. I mean, you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, wow. Well, I'm so excited about the little Pinky, and I'm hoping that today I can get a little glimpse of her. But it's always such a sad thing because we know that when you get them, they've lost their mothers. And usually
Sadly,
in very tragic or traumatic ways. But thank God for people like you who are there to be there, fill in mama. So, yeah. And as you were saying, the last show we had with you, we spoke about your court case with your dad. Wow. I have to say that kind of haunted me for a long time afterwards to think about what that was like for you.
Please don't let it, Chantelle. Please don't.
I know it does. Stuff like this always does. But, I work through it. It's my own processing. I'm well aware I've lived a very protected life in many, many ways. So it's always horrific for me to hear stories like this, and especially when your parents are involved. I cannot imagine my dad hurting us in that way. We had such a polar opposite of what you've experienced, So it's always a shock for me when I hear stuff like that. So, but I do work through it, and it's why obviously I have the channel, so that these things can come to the light. And, you know, and I want to point out, it's never about hurting your father in any way either. Despite the horrific things that these people do to their children and anyone, any of the innocents, their wives, their animals, their kids, whatever it might be, let's never forget they too at one point in time were teeny tiny little kids who had these horrific practices instilled upon them and enforced upon them as well. So for me, it's always important to look at that. It doesn't mean it's okay. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's okay, but I try to have compassion for him as well. And yes, he did continue on to be a horrific perpetrator, and he will certainly, I have no doubt, pay his dues to God. But I still also think about the innocent child that he once was.
Yeah, because, I mean, I do know a bit of his history, and I know that he came from a drunken father who was military, and he was a boxer as well in the military. And he used to find it fun to find the kids or make the kids hide. Well, my nana would make the kids hide. And they were in an old house in town, which, like, not like in America, but they're built a bit on stilts, and you can sort of get under the house. There's a space, and that's where they used to hide, because his father was drunk as, and he would put a bayonet on the end of the rifle and go hunting for them. And yeah, you've got to remember what they went through, and that's horrific. Think of that. Just think of that for a minute. Yeah. And there wasn't always enough food, and he didn't do a lot of education because he was off fishing all the time and brought it home to feed the family. And, you know, but as an adult, he still had that choice. You got to have some compassion and empathy, because the child was destroyed and terrorized. I mean, absolute trauma.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, my mother didn't fare much better, and this ritualistic abuse goes back, like, so many years in our families. It's, yeah, to break out of it is unnormal. That becomes unnormal. Once you break out, you're no longer normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And absolutely, you know, we get to being, you know, where we have to take responsibility for our actions. And as you say, as an adult, we do have that choice. But I think some wounds are also so deeply entrenched that they kind of like, it's virtually impossible to become undone unless you find someone who can work these miracles with you, you know. It's not easy. And as you yourself have said, you know, Joanne, it's like, how do you learn how to trust again? How do you even begin to trust God? You know, and that's the first thing you have to learn how to do. Because where was God when these atrocities were happening? You know, why were your prayers not being answered? You know, so really at the end of the day, I think there's so much anger on so many levels that play themselves out that you become the monster, because then that is really the only way that you as a child saw any type of satisfaction, right? There's obviously great satisfaction in what they're doing as well, you know, but
they do. You've got to understand, when they're actually in that perpetrating role, they get such sadistic sexual pleasure from what they're doing. It is there in plain sight. They can't hide that. They cannot hide it. Even when they're like being that perpetrator doing, that's what you get to see. That's what lingers. That's what you don't unsee, is that smirk, that way they look, and they have really, the depth.
I can imagine.
But it gives them so much satisfaction and pleasure. Yeah.
I think this planet has been entrenched in so much darkness for such a long time. And I say this so often, you know, there's been so much darkness and there's been such a covenant of fear that has ruled this planet. And you know what I see right now is the dark forces hate change, right? They hate change. They want everything to remain as is. That's why, I mean, you're going to find these dictators in power for decades and decades and decades, for example, right? They hate change. They want things to remain as they are, and they want to continue doing these things on an ongoing basis. However, the time is here where change is coming. And remember, out of chaos, you know, we've got to look at also, and I mean, and this is where Caleb's teachings for me are invaluable as well, because he talks about the realm of chaos, which is where the Raphaim, or what other people call demons. He does not call them demons. He calls them Raphaim, where they reside. And it's just that realm. Yes. It's just that realm of chaos. But, you know, also let us never forget that out of chaos, change is born. Now, we are here in a time of incredible change. So imagine these guys that have been in this dark world for so long, and suddenly it's time for change. In other words, light to come in, God's light to take over. They go into fear, they go into panic, they go into absolute this massive mode where they just want to now destroy anything that is threatening to them. So right now we are such a threat to them. And you know, we human beings, we as the humans are where the light, we are the light. We are the change. We are the ones that create the change. And I keep saying this, we are the ones through who God works. We are the ones that have to be in alignment and practice discernment and literally radiate God's light. And so, you know, and that's how God works through us. So it is that time for change right now. And yes, we're pretty much walking on the forefront of these atrocities. And it's always just so disgusting to see this. But I think this is what we must never forget. This is where we're at right now. And I always say, and I say this so much, we're living in the most beautiful times, the most exciting times, the most incredible, amazing. It's a gift to be alive at this point in time. It really is a gift for us. And so that we are the ones that are going to be literally creating the change in this during these times.
You know, what's just come to mind for me just now is if you ever come across anybody, doesn't matter who, and they say to you, count it a privilege that I've chosen you to be in my life. Run the other way as fast as you can. I don't know why that's come into my mind, but it has. And I needed to say that. Because they do feel entitled, these ones.
Yeah, they definitely do.
And they are better. And they are superior. And they feel and they justify.
No, they think they're superior. Let's never forget that. They hate us. And the reason why they hate us is because we have the consciousness or the manna that they want, MANNA, right? We are the manna.
Yes.
They are the fallen ones, and they cannot rise above this ladder or this realm for which they've created through their own actions. We can, and we do.
Mm-hmm.
And which is why they're going to do whatever they can to draw us in, to make us sit in that pit of despair with them and live this life of hell. But, atonement is available to all of us. When we take responsibility, when we ask for forgiveness, when we go back, because we are all created in the light of God. And whether that light is switched off right now or radiating strong, we still have it in us. And it is up to us to find that inner switch that flicks that switch again, for which we can then start doing the work of our amazing Creator, because that's what we're here to do. And we're all just here to walk each other home. I have a lot of, it's the same thing when my fiance was murdered. I went, and when the cops caught the guy, they called me and they told me. And I said, I want to meet him. I want to meet him. And a lot of people said to me, why would you want to do that? I said, I don't care. I want to meet him. And I sat there with him and I spoke with him. I sat across the table. And I had such compassion for him. He had the blackest eyes I've ever seen. There was no life in those eyes because he had been abused and tortured and what have you, and, all sorts of things. But the bottom line is that when I was able to sit down and talk with him and feel him as another human being as well, and realize what it was that drove him to commit these atrocities. And my fiance wasn't the only one. There were more after him, right? They caught him for more after him, but then he confessed, because then they start confessing. So my fiance was the first one that he killed. And so it was like really just in that case, I just was able to feel him as a child. And I said to him, I forgive you. I said, I know that you really did not know what you were doing. And it was incredible because I set myself free that day. I left and it felt like I'd taken a weight off my being in such a major way, because it had weighed me down so much. And I really wanted to see who the person was that was the last one to see him alive, basically. I needed to see. That was part of my closure. And I think everyone has their story to tell on some level or the other. We all have something that weighs our heart down. But I also believe that we're at the time now where karmically, when we have done the work we need to, when we've released what we need to, when we have done the inner work, it is absolutely amazing, because we don't have to be weighed down no matter what we've done. No matter, of course, if you're a child taken into the system and all you've understood is trauma and pain and torture and abuse, it's normal that you are 99.9% going to be the one that has tortured, that is going to go and torture others, and very often it starts with animals. And, it goes on from there. So I can sit here and judge you for doing that. It doesn't help anything. It's not my path. But that was my path. So when we learn how to just forgive, let go, and understand that there's a much bigger perspective, a much bigger picture in terms of everything, that's when life starts changing. And that's when we become the healer that those people need. And then we stop taking these things so personally. Very difficult to do that. And I'm not saying that it's easy. And I don't want to sit here and preach to anyone. But it really is amazing that when we are able to just see that somebody else, you know, the more violent they are towards others is a dead giver, a dead giveaway that that's how violent they are within themselves, because we project what's happening within us into the world around us. So the hatred they're projecting onto others is really an indicator of how much they hate themselves and how much they hate the person they themselves have become, because mostly they can't take responsibility for that. I don't know. What's your take on that?
Well, they definitely do not. They will generate usually between a victim themselves, and they will portray that to others outside of the environment they're in, especially if they're trying to slowly move in on a new situation or new what they're doing, or recreating a situation, because you got to understand, a lot of them, they can be psychopaths, they can be narcissists, many of them, most of them are on those levels and worse. Then they've got to create, if they want a bit of sauce over here, like to feed them, well, they're going to make out they're a victim, and that brings in, well, they're sorry for me and they feel bad for me, and that's how they set up. And you go in, and they're really lovely, they do the love bombing, they do, you know, the gaslighting and everything, and then they turn out doing exactly the same thing to that person they've done, which they're doing as they're leaving some other that's actually woken up and said, hang on a minute, you know, all of this violence and this, you're saying at work this and this, and she's that. It's nothing to do with she's this or that. This is you and your patterns. This is you using people to get what you want for your instant gratification and in the now, and has no concept of what love is, and plays one off against the other. So I totally agree that they are so calculated. But, and I do believe it is the time for everything that's been hidden to come out. I'm not only talking about, you know, from the top. I'm talking, let's go from just common man. Even what they're doing is all going to come out at the same process as, you know, with the churches, the way they're going, the Vatican, what's happening there, your banks, you know, are failing daily. It comes on every single level. It doesn't matter who you are. You know, the belief, or my belief is, and I get this with our Lord, is that we're all equal nothings. We are all equal nothings here, doing our experience here, you know. But they don't get that concept, and they have this grandiose idea that they're entitled, and they will use silent treatment. They will put even their boss against, set it up so the boss thinks the woman's not good at home, where that's not happening. But because he needs to have a certain thought out there, or create that environment to get himself further on, he uses it. And these people, they eat it up like it's chocolate. That's how good they are at it. So that's why I say, if you meet anybody out there that has that grandiose, like they're entitled, you know, I've done this and this, so I'm entitled. No, we're not. We're all equal nothings. We're here to learn, to grow, and come back to love, and back to our Lord. Let the Holy Spirit be alive in us, in everything we do.
Yeah.
They
And I
don't
think
have
a lot exactly. And I think a lot of us, because of their hatred towards us, have had that, and that's the light there, the inner light, our inner light, they're trying to snuff out with all the cruelty, with all the violence that they impose upon humans.
It's
And
too
we are
bright to
created
them.
from love. We are created from God's love, you know.
Yes.
And when we can go back to that, that's what saves us, actually, is the knowledge that we are created from God's love, and tune in.
Just like the angels have fallen, they can't go back into the throne room, into They've been put down. Where it was said, you know, where have you come from? From roaming, you know, in the depths and in the earth, to and fro. Well, these ones that are mankind that have got the same heart have no idea what love is or what it feels like. They have no concept because it's not in them.
Yeah.
And it's up to our Lord to, you know, he can plant a seed, but he always makes it grow, doesn't he? And hearts can be changed, but not by us. So I hope that answered that.
I think kindness, you know, when we show kindness and compassion to those who feel that they deserve it the least, that's where we begin. You know, the person who's the meanest, let's show them the most kindness and compassion, because that's how the world changes. It's like a snowball effect, you know. The more
And
they
there's
roll.
also a cut-off time.
Yeah, I agree. You know,
I do
you've got to
believe that.
realize you got to realize when that cutoff time is for you, and that's how we save ourselves as well. When we realize, you know, it's not up to us to save another, but what we can be is kindness, you know, because you've got to love one another. Didn't God say you've got to love one another as I have loved you? So when we can show that love, but it doesn't mean you've got to allow people to abuse you. You see, and as you say, that's where the cutoff time is. And obviously, as a child, you don't have that authority. But as an adult, that's up to us to learn, you know, boundaries. And that's what we're talking about. Yeah, boundaries are obviously where we have to be able to say, okay, well, now I'm going to love you from a distance. I can't carry on giving and giving and giving because that's now sucking the very lifeblood out of me. So now I've got to step back, preserve what I have within me, and love you from a distance, regardless of who you are, you know? And that really is, and that's where I say, you know, we have to, and that's the teachings of Christ. Do not judge, because it's not up to us to judge. If it's been your choice to love someone and they've hurt you, right? You were a co-creator in that process. And I'm talking about when you have the authority or the choice to do so. I'm not talking about as a child, right? So you've got to also look at yourself and say, well, what was the teaching in that for me? Where did I not know where to draw the line? Where did I not know when to say no? When did I, you know, think that I could save this person, and yet every alarm bell in my mind was going off? But I decided, no, they're red flags. It's a carnival. All the red flags. Yep, it's a carnival. I'm ganged up.
Yeah, but there's a bull hanging around behind the carnival. Yeah,
exactly. You know, the red flags are not a carnival, sister.
No.
But yeah, so I just, you know, I think in everything that everything that life offers us, every experience that life offers us is a learning, teaching, learning. There's the learner, teacher, learner. So who's the teacher and who's the learner? When are you learning and when are you teaching? And that's a wise soul will recognize that there's something to be learned in every situation. Charmaine, I agree. I'm learning too. I learn every day. You know, I understand where my shit lies, make no mistake. So I've got to learn every day to not be reactive, because that's where my issue is. I'm reactive, right? And then I've got to question, well, why am I reactive? What am I reacting to? What's the fear in me to which I'm reacting? So we have to absolutely have that ability to look within ourselves. And that's where, you know, when we are able to say, right, okay, this is the button you're pushing inside of me. That's the button you're pushing inside of me. That's my button. So let me go and unbutton my button, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that really, at the end of the day, is how we learn. And that's how even your harshest lessons, you know, in life are taught by who knows who they are in the spirit world, right? These people, you know, and that's why I say all the time as well, we've just got to take the lesson for what it is. And that's how we rise above the pain, the suffering. Us humans are in a, we tend to have a lot of suffering. We suffer a lot. And I think the time for our suffering is coming to an end.
I think it is. And I think sometimes, as you say, we've got to learn not to react. We've got to take that moment to stop. But we are human, so what do we go to? Straight to react. And then being able to identify that you have reacted before you've reacted way too much. So, yeah, it's constant learning every minute of the day, and it's constant in communication with yourself to make it and clear it through and work and understand where, because you don't, blaming is just a waste of time. Because
it empowers you.
Within ourselves.
Blaming is such a disempowering thing, because when we continue to blame other people for the things that have gone wrong in my life, it really means I'm giving my power away to that person. It really is saying, well, it's your fault that my heart is broken. It's your fault. Yes. And again, let's never forget, as a child, you did not have that power.
No.
But as an adult, just as much as what you have the power to change and not become the perpetrator, you also have the power and the responsibility to not become a perpetrator towards yourself anymore, a victim, in other words, right? There comes a time where you can say, you know what, I am no longer that little child that was abused and tortured and whatever. I am now a beautiful adult woman or man. And I do have the power to make a different choice. I do have the power to do something different in my life. And that's where the change comes in. And it's not easy, because it's not easy. The more we blame and bliksem each other, bliksem is Afrikaans word. And I love, Afrikaans is so cool. You can say things that sound like swear words, but they're actually not. Bliksem is a word we use when you say, I'm going to bliksem you. It means I'm going to smack you. But like, the guys, when they want to fight, say, no, gaan ek jou bliksem. Now I'm going to bliksem you. But at bliksem really actually means lightning. But it's lightning. The word bliksem is lightning. But yet to try and put that into different terms is very weird. So I always say, it's easy to blame and bliksem someone for what's happened in your life. It's a lot more difficult to say, this is my heart. It's my broken heart. Let me see what I need to do to heal my broken heart. And when we can come to that point in time, we will immediately establish the boundaries we need to, because that means you've taken, and you're now going to learn through that experience. So what can I learn through that experience? Well, I've learned compassion. I've learned empathy. I've learned tenderness. I've learned boundaries. All of these things that I never knew as a child, I can now bring into my own life, and I can start working with them now. And I think that for me is what's so important. And over the past 20 odd years that I've been a healer, when people get to that point of saying, right, I say no more, let's stop, no more. I now choose to do things differently. I now choose to think differently. I choose to act differently. I choose to perceive the world differently. Because as much as what that is such an ugly, disgusting world I've been living in, I know. And that's why I say to people as well, there are so many beautiful people in this world. There are so many beautiful people in the world that do not want to see children hurt. They do not want to see anyone hurt. They do not want to see women abused. They do not want to see animals abused. And I'm fortunate enough to be in that world. So I will stand and put my hand up all the time and say, there's a whole new world out there. So let me take your hand and I'll show you these people. I'll show you this world. I'll show you how there is another way of perceiving things. And then when you're in that world, you can turn around and you can say to yourself, wow, almost feels like a dream. That past of mine is surreal because I'm so surrounded by light and beauty now. It almost feels surreal. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Oh, it does. It does. Because we choose, don't we? We choose every single reaction outcome. And yeah,
Mm.
we're human, we get caught up in the emotion. But it's like this afternoon, I was outside, and I had like the birds just flying around, and I had a sprinkler on because I was watering some of the vegetables. And just to sit there quietly and have that time and listening to them helps when chaos can hit or life can get really fast or suddenly we're going to react, is take it and slow it down, you know,
Yeah,
and take that moment. And it's hard work, it really is. And to stay in that frame of mind, because we all do slip up because we are human.
absolutely.
But even
Absolutely.
now, I've got more faith in the Lord. I got more faith in that than the wickedness and the horribleness.
Right.
And I do get down, but and you've seen me write down, you know, and you really helped me just earlier on during the week. Huge, you know, my gratitude. I can't express how much we all have that. But as it was pointed out with what we were there together, you know, I was lifted up because somebody cared, and that's all it takes.
Yeah.
That's all it takes is to care about each other all the time. But then you've got the love of whatever's bad or can't not meant to do. Well, we're going to do it anyway. You know, that spirit of debauchery in its own way,
Yeah.
and you got to help each other, Shanti.
And that's
That's
what it is,
missing.
you know, because at the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters in Christ. There's not even a question in my mind around that. We are absolutely here to walk each other home. As I keep saying that, you know, there's not even a doubt in my mind that we are here for each other. And, you know, God works through each and every one of us. You know, that's how we become our earth angels. And, you know, just as you say, conversation you and I had earlier this week, and just something that I was saying and words that came through my mouth were straight from God. And it made a difference in your life. So that's how God works through us. And we have got to allow ourselves to trust that that's how things are, because trust is a big thing. You know, as you say, how do you, after you've been through what you've been through, how do you learn how to trust again? I'm not sure I could do
Well,
that easily.
you can because it. Okay, let's look at how God worked for us and the other day. Now, going back a few months ago, this really, really made a difference in my life. A lady I know, she's a what are they called? A, she works anyway, religious. So I can't remember. Maybe I can't remember her title. Anyway, she turned up at my door one day, out of the blue. Didn't know she was coming. Nothing. And when I opened the door, she looked at me and she said, "God put your name in on my heart when I woke up, and I had to come straight out here." And you know,
Wow,
that lady saved me from violence that day.
that's
That's
amazing.
how he gives back the trust to us to say, "I'm still here and I still love, and I've never left your side."
Exactly.
So things like that, they're the sort of things that get the trust
And I think
as
that's
you
so
build
true.
it.
Yeah, because that, you know, and that's how we learn. I think that's how we learn how to restore our trust in humanity, because it's so true, you know, when you've only had that darkness and there's no one you can trust as a child, everyone in your family, everyone in your extended family is part of this darkness. It's very difficult. Everyone you know, because, you know, of course, that's the world. And of course, you know, when we look at energy, we are created from sound, frequency, and vibration. And of course, when that is being your experience in life, that becomes your frequency, that becomes your vibration, and that becomes all you know. And that's what you emanate. And you're going to attract that which you emanate. So it's like attracts like. There's no question around that. So when you learn, God will always give you a book to read or a Bible or whatever it is, or a person, and something will click in for you. And then you start reading something different, or you start watching something different. Suddenly your frequency starts rising. And then you start leaving behind. It's like a helicopter rising out of the swamp. That's the only way I can put it. And then suddenly you're meeting other helicopters who don't want to crash into you and destroy you and eat you and munch you and drag you down and do whatever that swampy stuff wants to do, right? You're now there. You can fly. You're free. You can land. You can be on the mountaintop. And I mean, I'm just using that as an analogy. So you know, use it in your mind the way that you will. But that's what it is. And that's when we learn how to start trusting. And you start learning that there, as I said, there are people in the world, there are situations in the world that can make a difference and do make a difference. And it's what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, you know, I well remember also a number of years ago, a girl that I knew. I just felt one night I had to call her. I didn't know her very well. But she was a friend of a friend who I'd recently been introduced to, very nice and what have you. And for some reason, she'd given me her number and she said, please call me. And for some reason, I was tidying my bag or whatever it was. I found the number and I said, let me call her. And as she answered the phone, she said to me, why are you calling me? What made you call me? I said, I don't know. I just had the urge to call you. And it was so strong, I had to call you. I want to see how you're doing. And she said to me, you have no idea. I'm standing here with a bottle of vodka and a bottle of sleeping pills. If you'd called 5 minutes later, I would have swallowed these by now. So it was just that moment where, and I said, oh, no, we're not going to do that. And it was amazing. We developed an incredible friendship after that. In fact, yeah, we became good friends. I worked with her. She's gone on to do amazing things in her life. I mean, she's living in Cape Town now, really doing incredible things. So at the time, she was just at that low point. So, you know, we are there for each other, and we can, you know, and even if your situation has been dire, you know, we look at stuff like the trauma, you know, SRA, domestic. I mean, I know domestic violence is so common, for example.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have to be as extreme as SRA, but no one wants to be beaten up. No one wants to be kicked around. No one wants to have a man's fists crashing into your face every second night. No one wants to be humiliated in front of their children. No one wants to have their dignity stripped from them in the way. I mean, domestic violence, domestic abuse is, do you know that in South Africa, in the first 3 months after lockdown, domestic violence increased by 87%.
Yeah.
It's shocking that so many people, you know, they go out to work every day and do their thing, and just shows you how they can obviously running away from their spouses or whatever it is, getting out of the house. And now when they were forced to be together, I had so many divorces. So many of my clients were getting divorced. So many of my friends were getting divorced at the time as well. But also amazing healing occurred in marriages and in friendships and in families and stuff like that. Is that your doggy?
Yes, that's my doggy. Yeah, that's true. But see, a lot of these, even in Australia, it's known that these abusers, domestic violence abusers, literally are serial abusers. They've had restraining orders. They've had many women behind them they've abused. They're still out to do it again. And there was a case in New South Wales where a woman met a a man and he was a serial, domestic violence with restraining orders against him, and he killed her, their date. Now, this is what's happening in Australia because they're still out, they're still being able to go out and they find other women and they get to a point where they snap because they live with such anger, living right there, so close, they're straight to it. And this is our laws for those that are abusive in the home. When there's evidence, there's photographs, there's bruising or whatever they do, but they justify their abuse and say, no, no,
And
no.
isn't it interesting how domestic abuse is actually so low on the rung when it comes to taking action? Because it's insane that family members, and let me just tell you something as well. Yes, you're often going to hear that it's men that beat up on their wives because generally men will be stronger physically. And yes, do I think that a man should walk away? He should run out of that house long before his fists start crashing against his wife. Absolutely. He's got to have that self-control to do that, right?
Yes.
But there are plenty of women, and I'm going to say this very, very clearly, that know exactly how to prod a man in his weak spots, and who will go for the jugular and then gets that reaction out of a man as well. So I'm saying this because I'm saying that there are a lot of women out there who aren't exactly innocent. They will sit there and they'll stand and they'll provoke, because they will know. And then that man will maybe reach his breaking point and do something. And that's not all the time, but I want to tell you that is a lot of the time as well. So women, we need to heal as well, because, and as much as what men will generally be addicted to physical behaviors, such as physical violence, right? As women, we are addicted to emotional violence. And man, oh man, can we be bad when we are bad, when it comes to stuff like that. Men are really fragile beasts in many, many ways, right? So we have to heal ourselves as well. We all have to heal. All of us have to heal, in terms of, and, if you're in that position where you are being violated by a man, you need to get out. You need to get out. You need to trust that there is a home, or there is family members, or whatever it is that can support you. You've got to actually strengthen yourself and stop believing you deserve to be battered and beaten up. Because as long as there's any vibration in you that feels that, remember, the one thing that never ever lies is your frequency. So if your frequency is emitting that you believe you deserve to be beaten, and that, of course, is not a healthy thought, because that would be coming from lots of unhealed wounds in your life, and you are still emanating that, you're going to attract that in a partner. There's no question around that. So you need to heal yourself, and yes, the man does too, but all of us do. This whole world is needing healing right now. There's not even a question in my mind around that. But we all have to take responsibility for our own bullshit. And when we do that, this world heals, because we are the ones that are going to take it forward. We are the ones. The light shines through us. We are the bearers of light. We carry Christ's energy within us, in our hearts, that radiates and shines. And when that energy is shut down, that's when the darkness sets in. So it's up to us to keep the light of Christ shining from within. And we've got to make sure that happens. We are the only ones that can make sure that happens. So, yeah.
Yeah, because we're only really accountable for what we do and how we look at ourselves. And we don't justify what we do. We look at it. We look at it honestly. And then we change it, or else there's no Christ in us, is there?
Exactly.
Mm.
I'm just looking at some of the comments here. And Jessica, you know, you have a very soft spot in my heart, and I'm really sorry that happened to you. To the point that you were beaten up where you have PTSD now. And I'm glad that you left. You know, one thing about us women as well, we think we can fix men.
No, you can't.
You cannot
that's
fix
why you're winning. You don't belong there.
Yeah. And maybe you were, you know, whatever needed fixing or healing in you was projected onto him so that you thought you could fix him in that way. So it really is about saying, okay, what did that experience bring to me? Because now that we're 6 months or a year or 2 or 5 down the line, it's much easier to look. Hindsight, we can always have 20/20 vision. So what did that experience bring to you? What has it taught you not to be? You know, and Duke, I mean, there are lots of abusive wives as well. That's why I say, and Simona, I'm glad you made that comment about it always takes two. An abusive situation, every situation takes two to tango, guys. Whether, you know, you're going to have one that's maybe hidden and more covert and the other one more overt, right? But there's always going to be it's never just one person participating in this. So we all have to do our healing. We all have to see where our energy is leaking, where we're putting out the vibration that we are deserving of ill treatment, that we do not know or have, it's not available to us, or whatever the case might be. Whatever your unconscious thoughts are, is exactly what others are picking up on.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's how we start taking responsibility for our lives. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm not talking about children who've been abused in the system and who are being abused. We understand that. Why do you think these creatures of the night get the kids? Because they mold them into something that is so hurt and so wounded that they cannot even begin to see the light or feel the light anymore. So they then become the perpetrator. And that's what they rely on, right? They don't rely on people like Joanne turning around and shining her bright light at times like this, right? And people like Caleb, people like, I mean, I can name them, like Jesse, I can name them forever, right? So and I mean, umpteen ones of you that are sitting in the chats as well. I mean, I'm always amazed at how many survivors and overcomers are in the chats, and you guys have come through so much. But I want to tell you, one man tried to hit me once and I smacked him back so hard. His freaking teeth are still rattling. I'll tell you that much. You do not touch me. You do not touch me. And if you're going to try and touch me, rest assured.
I'm going to strike back. I'm going to fight.
Yeah. And I'll get you when you're sleeping. I'll get you when you're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not scared to get you when you're sleeping. I'll never forget that. My aunt used to be a nurse, my dad's sister. And she told the story of this guy that used to beat his wife black and blue. And she was always in hospital with smashed up face and eyes and no teeth and what have you, and alcohol, right? And then one day she waited until he was sleeping. She took the fire poker and she hit him while he was sleeping. That he was almost like beaten to within an inch of his life and ended up in hospital. So sometimes that's the medicine you need as well. And I always remember that. I thought of myself, if a man ever has to do that to me, rest assured, I would go that direction. But yeah, it's an interesting time. But that's why I say, you know, of course, we don't have to resort to violence. But just it's up to you to heal yourself so that you do not get involved in these types of situations. And what a blessing for you that you met your husband when you did. And I mean, I remember you telling us somewhere in the beginning that he said to you, his job was just to love you. And I've no doubt that the two of you have had your traumas, because, you know, when someone is married to someone who's had such trauma, there can't be another way. And, you know, anyone who's married to someone or has a partner or relationship with someone who's got such severe PTSD, you know, you have to know what you're letting yourself in for. You know, you've got to realize that, you know, when you're dealing with someone who's had such trauma, you're dealing almost like with someone like a wounded leopard in certain instances that's in the corner, and that animal's going to lash out sometimes. So you've got to know your wits about you. You've got to be gentle. You've got to be aware. You've got to be in prayer. You've got to meditate. You've got to really just allow for people to heal, and as they heal, so you heal.
And they don't always understand.
Well, yeah, so it's a beautiful word. Ek gaan vir jou bliksem.
I'm going to learn it, I'm telling you. See, get that portal going, and then I can come over and learn all the words.
Yeah, exactly. We got to open this portal. I told you, just make sure you got no glass furniture.
No, got none of that. No. But yeah, no, when going back to that too, is it's been very hard, you know, for both of us, and we've had our times apart, and we are each other's best friend. We've learnt that depth of caring and friendship that carries us through even today, you know, because it wasn't unscarred. It did have its moments and tragedies along the way. But at the end of it, we still care about each other, and we'll always look after each other. And because that's what we do. It's love's more than just on the physical side of things. It's a depth that's really precious. I can't explain it any other way.
No, I think, and that's a beautiful thing, you know, and that's a beautiful, because I see that, you know, every now and again when I work with people that have been hectically abused, you know, there's the partner that just, or someone that's been through a really rough time in life, you know, there's just that helping hand that comes from. I mean, I love Kathy O'Brien. I don't know if you guys have also heard Kathy O'Brien's story when she was rescued out of the system. It was with the guy that was actually he wasn't participating in the system, but he was doing work for the government and stuff like that, and the CIA and what have you. And he saw what was going on there, and he like rescued her and her daughter. And she basically fell in love with him immediately. And he said, no, not until you healed. And he walked her through that beautiful healing journey.
Wow,
and that's actually incredible. So, you know, we hear these stories every now and again. Lisa, that is just horrible. I cannot imagine seeing my mother being abused. I want to tell you, I would kill a man if he hurt my mother. And it's true. It's going to teach you boundaries as well. And that's why I say, what, you know, when we can look at that, what is the gift in every experience for me? That might be it. Yeah. And it's true, Lisa D. Love is not just about good times. It's more bad times, and we stand together. Yeah.
And understanding, and how did you have that depth of communication? And sometimes, like, we might talk and I'll start to say something and he'll finish the sentence. That's the depth, you know, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
That's precious.
Absolutely.
Because you do know each other. It's not imitation, it's not like instant gratification. It's none of those sort of loves.
Yeah.
It is
exactly.
It's a knowing, and it's a beautiful love. Yeah.
It's your soulmate, you know, and it's definitely that. I'd be interested to know, just in ending as well, because I know we've just hit an hour now as well. You were talking about quite a bit of domestic abuse and violence in Australia right now. Are you, because I know with your sanctuary, there's people that come out there and they work with the Joeys and stuff. Are you seeing an increased number of that right now?
Definitely, yes. And yes, we do have them come out and do work with joeys, and we spend time with them working through different aspects of their abuse, because the joeys really cut through any mistrust, because you can't mistrust a little tiny joey that is so absolutely adorable and loving. And over time, the trust is even more built, because it takes these people that come slowly getting to meet the joey, spending time with the joey. It doesn't just happen, they come out and that's all happens, because you can't do that to a joey, because the joey's got its own boundaries. This is where boundaries come in again. You cannot encroach on that joey's right to feel safe when there's suddenly a new person and different smell. You can't do that. So that sets up for whomever's come out to do the work. Oh my goodness, boundaries are okay, because I can hurt the joey if I don't do the steps as they're meant to be done for that health of that joey, and so that the person can say, well, wow, I'm gaining trust. So they're learning how to trust and how to set a boundary up when they leave and they're dealing with other people. It's so integral to their healing here.
That's amazing.
And they get to grow plants. They get to grow veggies, and they get to take some home. So it's productivity as well, if you know what I mean. Like, they get the pride of growing something from seed and watching it grow and then eating it, taking it to that point of eating.
Do the people actually stay there while they're going through healing? I mean, is it a process of them staying at the sanctuary with you?
Yes, some do, some don't. It depends on them.
Right.
We just cater to whatever is the need of the person at the time. Yeah.
That's
I had
amazing.
one come out every single day there for months on end, even after she'd been abused, and just sit and spend time. Sometimes we just wouldn't say very much, just concentrate on the joeys, because we were sitting out there. It was lovely out there with them. She ended up falling asleep several times, because I've got a big sort of like big huge bed thing out there with, it's only like a mattress thing, but it's all waterproof and whatnot. And she ended up laying down and falling asleep, because she needed that, because she couldn't, when she returned home, she was in that fear. So the healing comes in many different forms and shapes and sizes. And we just cater to what is needed, to the individual.
That's incredible. And, you know, animals are just amazing. Animals are absolutely incredible when it comes to that. You know, it doesn't have to be a joey, a dog, cat, anything. Dogs are incredible. You know, I've worked with people that are drug addicts coming off drugs, and bad ones, like really bad, like serious situations. And the minute they've got themselves a little doggy, wow, everything changes. Suddenly they come home, there's a purpose for them. There's something they've got to look after, something that's looking for them, you know. And every situation I've had like that, I'm not saying every situation is successful, but every situation I've worked with like that, where animals have come in to be the healers. I mean, cats couldn't give a rat's backside. although they can, you know. The minute your energy changes, the animals feel it, the plants feel it, the world feels it. That's the thing, you know. Suddenly your cat, who never stops biting you or just doesn't like you very much, will now suddenly start rubbing against you and purring and actually liking you.
Yes.
But yeah,
yes, they are cat makers, those cats, I think. I do.
Oh, Lisa, goats are the best. They are so cute. Goats, little goats. Oh my goodness, yeah. And any animal really. So it's just incredible. You know, the purr of a cat, when the cat lies on you and just starts purring, or next to you and just starts purring. I mean, that's said to have, I don't remember offhand what hertz the frequency is of their purring, but it's supposed to heal the heart chakra.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes, cool. And they also rub you a lot, and they're rubbing on you because they're actually imprinting on you, and it is so good and releases endorphins that are, they can make a huge difference to a person, how they're feeling so quickly. That medicine cats, my kids always called them. They were medicine cats. They were there to love and give the medicine needed.
Yeah, I love my cats. I have to tell you, I think they are incredible. I wouldn't swap them for the world. They are so cheeky and so full of, like you'd swear they were queens. At least they think they are.
Yeah. And they understand everything we say. All of them do. They really do. You know, and they look at you sometimes, and if you sort of tap in telepathically and you're talking, they've got a sense of humour. It doesn't matter what creature it is, they've got a sense of humour. They really do. And they're so funny. Mm-hmm.
Oh, hilarious. I know, they are hilarious.
Yeah.
Anyway, Joanne, I want to say thank you so much for joining me again. And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. And by the way, I want to say that, Joanne, and maybe next time we can talk about the program you have for the Joeys. The Joeys, where you can literally adopt a Joey for the year.
Yeah.
And then you get to obviously contribute and donate towards it. But it becomes, I know they were doing that with the donkeys and stuff as well. So we're going to talk about that. So if anyone wants to adopt a Joey in Australia, and obviously you'll get, I would imagine, some videos and stuff. But we can talk about that. We can talk about that next time you're on.
That's wonderful.
And I want to just say, everybody in the chats, I really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you so, so much for joining us. And yeah, you know, it's not easy topics, and it's not an easy time. We're coming out of some very dark spaces and very dark times. And, you know, and that's why, I mean, Caleb was saying, for those of you watching his show last night as well, you know, and we're getting to a place as well where we won't have to even think of, we're not carrying that darkness with us anymore. You know, I call it release. It's a time where our karma is being released, but you have to have done the sufficient work on yourself. You have to have, you know, at least, when I say paid atonement, acknowledged the wrong and be on the path of rectifying it. It's not just going to say, okay, well, I can just carry on being an asshole and, you know, move to the higher vibration. It doesn't work that way, but it's available to us now, where we don't have to have all this years and years and years worth of stuff carrying on our backs anymore. God is just taking it from us all, and we are being put into the position right now where we can build a new world with each other for ourselves and leave this darkness behind. You know, it's not up to us to have it anymore. So thank you, everybody. God bless you all. Have a fantastic weekend. And I have Jerry Marzinski tomorrow night. That is another cool one. So join me for that. That'll be 7 o'clock my time. At 7 p.m. GMT. That's an hour after Caleb usually is. I'm just trying to see the timing of the shows because I have no idea where you guys are. And Sunday, obviously, Caleb again. And also Yana, my friend Yana from Namibia. We're talking about, she's the one whose partner recently, on her birthday, committed suicide in her driveway by shooting himself in the head. Very traumatic. And I mean, how that girl has come through. But, you know, she's incredible. Another Aquarian, of course. She's incredible. And how she's come through her healing. And we're looking at, the title is Redefining Healing. You know, we go through the different stages of healing, but how she's done it is amazing. And I think she's an example for so many as well. Cool.
So we've lost Chantelle again, but I'd like to say thank you to all of you. And we'll be catching up in a couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll get Chantelle back to finish the live show.
There I was again.
There you go. But you can. Thank you very much for everything.
Okay. Awesome, Joanne. Thanks a lot. And we will see you in a fortnight again, right? Yeah. God bless you, everybody. See you soon. Cherry buys.